So welcome to another episode of the Mortgage Pro podcast. Today we are joined with our first interview with the founder of Meaningful Money and also the managing director of Jackson's Wealth Management, Mr. Pete Matthews. Morning, Pete.
Hey, how you doing, Gary?
Yeah,
okay?
very well indeed. Yourself?
Good. Yes, it's good to be here, mate. And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be the first interview.
Well, thank you very much indeed for doing the podcast. I've followed you for a little while and seen as I've just launched my podcast, and I've kind of built my brand over the last 3 years using video and trying to do things differently. You've done that for about 10 years, haven't you now, I think? So yeah,
amazing how quick the time's gone.
Yeah. So before we kind of get into your story and getting a bit of an idea of your journey, when you're telling people, you know, when someone says at a networking event or when you meet somebody new, you know, how do you explain, what do you do?
I always say that I'm a financial planner, and that's as opposed to a financial advisor. Now, it might sound like semantics to a lot of people, just a sort of difference in words, but the problem with financial advice in a lot of people's minds, that's tainted with good reason, right? You know, and people kind of back away in fear in case you sell them an endowment or something. So financial planning isn't widely understood here in the UK. You probably ask most people in America, they would have some idea of what a financial planner does. Here in the UK, not so much, largely because of a lack of good PR over the years, something which I'm trying to redress. But financial planning is what I do. So we are less concerned about selling products here. That's obviously a part of what we do. We are a financial advice practice to all intents and purposes. But if you ask what I tell people, I say I'm a financial planner, which is the process of helping people articulate and sort of vocalize their goals, really, work out where they are now, have some idea about what they might have coming in and going out over the coming years, and basically mapping it forward. So it's maths, really, a lot of which is done by computer. But the power of financial planning is that it enables us to put some kind of meaningful numbers on when somebody might be able to retire, and you know, the impact of various scenarios, like what happens if, you know, a partner dies early, what happens if they retire 5 years earlier than they think they might be able to, and all that sort of stuff. So it's very rewarding work, and that's what I do. And then I usually just sort of stick in at the end, I say, oh, I'm a podcaster, as well, which is an increasingly important part.
Just
of what
make yourself sound a little bit more cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not cool. I'm 44 and growing, so I have to do what I can to be cool.
Nothing wrong with that. Well, the podcast is attracting not just mortgage advisors, but because I built my brand using social media, I've been being tagged in posts from startups and SMEs and general business owners as well, which is really good because a lot of what I talk about applies to all kind of business. So going back to when you first joined the financial services industry, you know, what was your first business that you kind of set up or got involved in, and then how did you transition in?
So I followed the classic career path, or at least it was the sort of classic career path 20 years ago. So this is my 21st year in financial services. So I joined when I was 23. I dropped out of university, did an electronics degree, hated it, and failed my second year, and I wanted to get married, so I needed to get a job. So I've been working at McDonald's, you know, part-time, flipping burgers, doing the McDonald's thing, and I went into management for them and actually learned a great deal. Fantastic company to work for, as long as you don't ever want to see the light of day. You are there 70, 80-hour weeks. But it was a good stepping stone, actually, but wasn't really compatible with my wife's career because she was a nurse. So she was on shifts, I was on shifts, and we never saw each other. So I had a friend who worked for the Co-op Insurance Society, or the CIS. And most people may have heard of the Man from the Prue, which is where, you know, man used to call on, they had an area of the country, really, an area sort of near to them, and they would call every 4 weeks on their customers and collect the life insurance premiums, very often in cash at the door, and in the process, obviously, sell new policies. I used to do car and house insurance renewals as well. And that was my first foray into financial services, really. And it was good training ground. They put me through the financial planning certificate, the basic exams at the time. I had a really good manager there, and then followed the career path really through another tide. I worked for Royal & Son Alliance in mortgages, actually. So I did mortgages for nearly 2 years, and the associated life cover, a little bit of insurance, and then became an IFA. Followed a friend of mine who'd been my sort of mentor at the Royal. He became an IFA, and I followed him a month later, and we worked for a guy in, this was in Cardiff in South Wales, where I settled after doing my degree. So yeah, so classic career path, Tide advisor, from McDonald's to Tide advisor through to IFA, and eventually in 2005 came to Jackson's and was able to buy in 2007.
Right. Okay. So effectively you've run your own business since 2007.
Yeah. So it sounds impressive, but Jackson's it was founded in 1923.
Right. Okay.
Right. So it's a very well-established business. It's like 96 years old this year. And the financial services bit was spun out in 1974. So even the business that I now co-own is older than I am, right? So it's been a bit complicated. So it's been sort of diced up in different ways over the years. So I was able to buy a quarter share essentially in 2007. It didn't cost me that much, about 55 grand. It was enough that I could mortgage it basically to borrow it and buy in. Then that was a bit of a steal, really, because it was a bit of a sleeping giant at the time. So I'm one of 4 owners of the business. I'm the youngest, so over time I will buy the older guys out as they retire. But it's been really good. So I glory in the title of managing director, but I'm basically first among equals. So my colleague Roger is finance, Chaz is organization and people, and Mike is sort of chairman. He's the sort of senior guy. He's 74.
Yeah.
So it works really, really well actually, and it's nice, tidy little practice, very profitable, very well established. And Penzance, right down here, we're 10 miles from Land's End. We're in the far southwest of the country. Everybody knows everybody down here, and so if you've got a good reputation, it's a nice, easy business to run. Really.
And is it still a lot of face-to-face, or is it over the phone or Skype, or how are you doing your business?
Well, you see, I'm the kind of anomaly here. So as a business, we are, the classic IFA practice. So we're face-to-face. Most of our business is local, but thanks to Meaningful Money, the podcast, and all that sort of stuff, almost all my clients now I've never met. It's all done via Zoom video and remotely, and it works really, really well. So we've kind of had to sort of just feel our way through that. But of course, it'll become normal before too long. It's getting that way now, really. People who find me online are more than happy to work with me online. So works really well.
And the online stuff, actually, we'll touch on that a little bit more in a second, but that didn't start till sort of 2010, did it really? So prior to...
That's right. I started messing around with the video camera in 2009, but it went live in 2010. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, so up in that 2009 sort of point, what made you want to suddenly start transitioning to doing the videos and doing the podcasts and all that kind of stuff? Because that's 2009, that's such an early phase. At that point, I went into insurance because we got hit by a credit crunch, and it was like, how am I going to make a living?
Yeah, exactly. And it's so I always say that the 3 things really came together that were the trigger for starting this weird little journey that's just become a monster. And the first was that I became aware in various spheres of my life, both at work and at home, and I'm involved with a church, so I was sort of in that kind of sphere, in all kinds of places. I was even a governor at school, but I just became aware that a lot of people said to me, Pete, you're really good at explaining things.
Yeah.
Right. And if enough people say it, it starts to sink in. So I started to think, well, actually, maybe I am good at explaining things, and thought not a lot more of it, really. Secondly, I wanted to, basically, I was so sold on the power of financial planning and of good financial management, which is not rocket science, right? And yet we don't teach it in schools. We don't teach it as adults. We don't teach it in the workplace, and we really should. But I was so sold on it and the power of it to transform people's lives. I want to make a living. This is not a charity at Jackson's, right? But there's only so many people I can see face to face. So I wanted to make a bit of a dent really in the universe and say, well, look, actually, this information needs to get out far wider than just my 4 walls here, right down in the far southwest of the country. And then the third thing that happened was I read a book called Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk, who's just my #1 online hero. And the premise of that book was, look, whatever your message is, you can now get it out there unedited. There's no gatekeepers, and you can do it for free. What an incredible opportunity we have, in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. You had to either be extremely good looking, extremely lucky, and chances are there'd be some middle-aged guy in a grey suit standing between you and getting your message out, right? Whereas now it's free for all. So if it's good, people will show up. And those 3 things kind of came together, and I thought, I'll have a go. And so I bought this. which is a flip video cam with a little, check this out, little built-in USB thing, all right? So this is 720 high definition, 720 point high definition, so not even full HD. Microphone is terrible, and I used to have to wait for it to demist on a cold day. But one morning very early, about 7:30, I went down onto the, essentially down to the prom in Penzance, so by the sea, shot a video, and I sort of wedged that against a gate thing, and I just talked to it for 2.5 minutes, and I did about 4 takes. And I said, look, I'm just going to explain how money works in these short videos. Uploaded it, didn't tell a soul what I was doing, because I didn't even tell my wife. I thought she'd think I was an idiot. But then I got sort of 20 of them underway, and then I started to tell people about it, and people said, oh, do you know what? You might be onto something here. Shot nearly 300 videos, and then I fell in love with podcasting as a consumer, and that's when I switched primarily to that medium. But I love video and still do 2 videos a week.
2 videos a week. Nice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I edit them myself.
Do you?
So
yeah,
I love it. I love technology. That's my other thing. I've always loved technology.
Yeah.
If I'm not surrounded by 6 different screens, then I get slightly twisted.
I heard you saying that on your podcast this morning, actually, about how much you get into the shiny object of technology.
I do. Mm-hmm.
And how many podcast episodes have you got out there now?
So the main podcast, which goes out on a Wednesday, there's 316 of them. First one went out in November 2012. And then I also do a 5-Minute Friday, and there's 40 of those. So what's that? 350 roughly. And then there's about 300 standalone videos, but a lot of those are a bit out of date now. So I'm just sort of updating them as I can, really. So it's a lot of content.
Yeah, without shadow of a doubt. And do you repurpose that into kind of blogs and other mediums as well, much like Crush It talks about?
Yeah, starting to now. You've got to understand that, this is a busy practice here. Meaningful Money is still a sideline. It's only in the last 6 months that I now dedicate a day a week, Fridays, to Meaningful Money. So my door is shut, the phone is off, I don't open my work email, my Jackson's email. So it's a day dedicated to creation. But up until this point, it's been evenings and weekends, a lot of evenings and weekends. And so there has been a limit to how much I can do. But now, in the last year, I have a team. So I have a lady called Gudrun who writes for me. So she takes podcast scripts, repurposes them into blogs. And then I've got a guy called Kalian in Belgium, and he is just a social media genius. So we're only about 4 months into the whole, how can we repurpose this stuff? But I've got like a 22,000 word ebook coming out based off the scripts off the last podcast season, all that stuff I never could do if it was just me, because there just isn't time. So having people around me now has been an absolute godsend, and we're seeing a real marked uptick in the reach as a result. So
without doubt, and I can echo that as well, because that was, I watched people in the fitness industry back in 2015, 2016. For 7 years running my insurance business, all I did was pay third-party lead providers, PAA leads as part of Money Supermarket and everything else. And I just saw in the fitness industry, this guy called Grenade Jamie Alderton, just doing video. And I thought, right, if this guy can talk about fitness, if I just talk about mortgages, then that's going to have the same kind of impact. There's education that needs to be put out there. And we've started on the repurposing and turning the transcriptions into blogs and creating mini videos for Instagram and things like that.
Exactly. That's next. Next season. Instagram. We're all in on Instagram.
Which where the millennials are hanging out, isn't it, really?
Well, it is. Well, my whole last season, podcast season, which was a 10-week season, was about millennial finance, because I think millennials just come in for too much. Am I allowed to swear?
Nah, you can go for it. Don't bother me.
I'm not badly, but I just say, I think millennials come in for a lot of shit, right? And I think it's all entirely misplaced, or nearly all. The whole tired cliches of being flaky at work, needing mental health days, avocado toast. I've got no time for any of that crap. I think, the millennial generation is in more ways more blessed than any previous generation, but there are unique challenges. So I dedicated a whole season to how to overcome those challenges. Things like, a flakier job market than there's ever been before. Obviously, student finance, all that sort of stuff. The things which, and relatively high house prices compared to wages and stuff compared to when I bought a house in 1997, right? So these are challenges, no doubt, but they're not insurmountable. So I love the millennial generation, and I think the future is extremely bright as a result. So yeah, man, Instagram's where it's at.
Yeah, totally agree. I've got Jack, who edits all these podcasts and videos. He's 19, you know, so he was previously an apprentice. Toby, who's with me now, he's an apprentice, but he's like, doesn't even have, I've made him get a Facebook account just so he can be part of our company group. He's on Instagram, you know, it's just like, I don't.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
That is where it's at.
Sure.
So while we're talking about kind of the marketing side of things from that perspective, anyone who's a mortgage advisor or a small business owner, how key do you think it is for them to start either creating video, getting a podcast out there, and where should they perhaps start with it?
Okay, I think it's important because, I mean, important, that isn't even a big enough word. I think it's essential, really. Just simply because we are incredibly cynical now as a civilization. And the biggest source of sort of social proof is our social circle, so our friends and our family. We're not massively struck on experts anymore, right? You know, it's like anybody can hold themselves up as an expert, but you will prove yourself as one if you deliver constantly good, useful, actionable information. You're not an expert because somebody else says you are. So, you know, being on the social networks and creating content which needs to be entertaining, otherwise nobody will watch it. It needs to be reasonably light and interesting. It needs to be educational, obviously, because you know there's a lot of information out there, but it needs to be focused, I think. So you're not just being bombarded with sort of crap from the fire hose. You need to make sure whatever you're putting out there is focused, but it needs to inspire to take action, right? We tend to sort of look for an expert, whether it's a mortgage expert or a financial planning expert or whatever, because we have a need in the moment. And of course, now we've got the sum of human understanding at our fingertips on our phones. And so we're looking for the right person at the right time. And if you're not there, you'll just be invisible. Yeah. So, you know, you've got to have a body of content behind you, I think, for people to be able to find. Now, as for where to start, I think really there's maybe 3.5 methods of content. There's written word, audio, and video, and the half is sort of images, really, particularly in the Instagram world. So you can do some good stuff just by posting good images to Instagram. I think you need to have something behind that, though. That probably won't be enough. It's sort of soundbite stuff, but you know, and it's so quick and easy now on your phone. So I still think the best thing that people can do is to start to listen to the questions that they are being asked. So if you are a mortgage advisor, you are getting asked the same questions all the time by your clients and by your friends and family as well. Gary, you know about mortgages. What about this? I got asked. I was in the gym this morning. A guy comes up to me and talks to me about his pension scheme at the council. You know,
it's good workout. That's fun.
It's like, okay, just between sets. Yeah, all right, okay. Okay, let me just switch modes a minute. And you know, so you get these questions all the time. So start writing them down and start answering them. So that can either be, you know, in a sort of 300, 500 word written blog post maybe, or it can be hold your camera in front of you and just shoot a video, you know, whack it straight on Instagram, who knows? But obviously that's a little bit quick and raw, and that's a fine place to start. It gets you into the mode of creating content, but then you need to be a bit smarter about it and understand, you know, keywords and thumbnails if you're doing video and all that sort of stuff, all of which I'm still learning 9 years on, but which a lot of people are intuitively great at. So, you know, just start with whatever. I tend to tell people to firstly consume content. So, you know, find stuff that you enjoy listening to, watching, reading, all that sort of stuff. A good stepping stone is curation. So you can actually curate other people's content while you're sort of finding your own thing. And then obviously you start to create. So if you can consume first, then curate, and then create, that's a good sort of ease in. But then sometimes you just got to press the damn button, as Brian Fanzo says, and just start shooting video or start creating audio, you know?
And if you don't, then somebody else is going to nick your space in terms of doing it.
Yeah, well, exactly. I feel very lucky that I've pretty much got prime mover advantage in my space. There are a few personal finance podcasters and some excellent ones. I just happened to start earlier than them and got a lot of traction while nobody else is in the market. So there's no skill in that, you know. That's just good luck, really. So I feel very blessed in that case. That, but I love it, and I do it. The key, of course, is consistency. Yeah. You can't do it for 2 months and then think, well, you know, I haven't got 1 million downloads yet. What's going on? You know, I've been doing it every week since 2010.
Yeah. And that's the thing,
It's a lot of time.
It's having that minimum standard of performance, isn't it, effectively? No matter what you're doing,
Yeah.
if it's your investment strategies you're using within your financial planning, or whether it's your content that you're putting out, or the new lead generation that you're spending, if you don't go and do your 1 hour of new lead generation, or you don't create content for an hour every week, then it's all just going to fall on its ass.
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen on its
Exactly,
own,
exactly.
Yeah.
So one of
the
things I'm a massive advocate of is almost owning a niche. So I did insurance for 7 years, and then in 2015 moved home as a company director, having had previously self-cert mortgages. You know, my wife being a sole trader because we'd had a couple of kids, and I just saw this massive opportunity for self-employed mortgages as a keyword and a tag, and that's effectively how I wrote the book and what I started producing content on. And exactly as you said, all I did was every question that I was being asked, can I get a mortgage with 1 year's accounts? You know, I want to use my net profit, not my salary. I was like, I'm not gonna continue to give these same answers. I'll just do a video that I can then share. Job done. So how powerful do you think it is for mortgage advisors or business owners or anyone looking to put content out there to own a niche, or to really fine tune that?
Yeah, it almost, I mean, incredibly valuable. It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? You think, hang on, why am I limiting my potential audience? But of course, you end up with a more focused, more committed, more engaged audience if you do that. And to be honest, I kind of did this perhaps in a way that you might not think. So I started out shooting video. Now, YouTube is an insanely deep ocean of content, and something like 65 years worth of video uploaded every single
Crazy.
day, which is just nuts. I mean, there's more content uploaded to YouTube every day than the 3 major video networks, the TV networks in the US have ever created since the 50s.
Mental, isn't it?
Right, so more every day on YouTube than the 3 major networks in the US, biggest economy in the world, have created ever. And it's just like, you know. So that's not a niche. So for me to start talking about personal finance, well, there's millions of people talking about personal finance on YouTube, right? Now, and I got a little bit of traction. It took 18 months to get my first sort of, please will you work with us? You sound like you know what you're talking about sort of thing. And it was dribs and drabs, a few comments here and there. You know, I mean, since 2009, I've still over 300 odd videos. I'm still only about 250,000 total views, which is not a lot over that many videos and that amount of time. Whereas the second I switched to podcasting, I noticed a massive increase in engagement because why? It was a much smaller pool. There was hardly anybody doing it then. There was only something like a couple of 100,000 podcasts across the entire planet. And I was the only one, except for the BBC, sort of changing like Wake Up to Money and that sort of stuff into podcasts. I was the only independent personal finance podcaster at the time. The very definition of a niche, I pretty much had a monopoly for a couple of years, you know? So there's no doubt it works. So whether it's, you know, you happen to be the only person talking about what you're talking about on a media channel, or whether you're the only person talking about what you're talking about full stop, there's clear benefits in it. But it just, you have to get over the fact, or the sort of inner question that you think, am I not limiting myself here? But there's countless examples of people who've made it work. So definitely worth doing for sure.
And I think one of the things I talk about is, you know, the niche is the niche initially, but once you fill that space and you become the expert in that, it doesn't mean it's your niche forever. You know, the niche can grow and it can expand and you can develop it out. You can have a micro niche that can grow as you grow and as your company grows. But I can't remember what the book is or what the person who said, but you only need 1,000 true fans. And if you can find it, if you can find your 1,000 true fans, then, you know, you're going to have success from there.
Yeah, for sure. It is inevitable, given enough grind. It can just be hard work, you know, there's no doubt. But I mean, that's the point. We're not afraid of that.
Yeah, without a doubt. So you're the managing director of the Jackson's Wealth Management.
Yes.
And that's a 15-person team. And you said
7 advisors, 8 staff.
And you're doing 1 day a week at the moment on Meaningful Money. So what's kind of the future look like for Meaningful Money as you transition out of one and into the other?
Yeah, Meaningful Money is my sort of passion project, really. It's what I feel like I've been put on earth to do. It's incredibly rewarding to get emails from people saying, look, you know, 18 months ago, I had 25 grand worth of credit card debt and you've given me the tools to get out of that. I'm now saving for my future, and, you know, I'm putting money away for the kids and all that sort of stuff. And that's why I do it, you know. It just happens to have become a phenomenal marketing
Yeah,
engine.
yeah, yeah.
Which, I mean, I know squat about marketing other than what I've learned by doing, right? I don't have any qualifications or anything
Yeah.
like that. So it's become such a big deal. Essentially, middle of last year, I was a little bit unfocused. I was neither in or there, really. I wasn't fully committed to one or the other. I'm not an idiot, right? The bulk of my wealth, such as it is in this practice, right? So we either want to sell it, which we have no appetite to do, because most of the people buying financial advice practices are big national consolidators that we've got no love for. So we don't want to do that. Plus, it earns me a decent living, right? So I need to find a way of transitioning out. And that's what we're bringing in younger advisors, training them up. I'm in no rush. I think what I'll do is before too long, maybe another year or so, I'll be 2 days a week on Meaningful Money, 3 on Jackson's, and I'll just transition it out.
Yeah.
I actually really, really love dealing with my clients. So it's not like I've had enough of it and I just want to get out. I love that, and I love Meaningful Money. So I am a bit torn. But the 1 day a week thing was a suggestion of one of my colleagues, because clearly Jackson's has benefited from it. So it makes sense for them to give me the time to dedicate to it, because it just brings more clients. I mean, I'm stacking in clients into June now. I never have fewer than 10 clients. Now, bear in mind, it takes us about 4 months, 3 or 4 months to onboard a client, as we generally deal with reasonably high net worth people with fairly complex needs. So, 10 a month is a hell of a lot of work. So anywhere between 6 and 10 a month new clients every single month. And I've got a waiting list, which is like panacea. That's what you want. If you can get a waiting list of people waiting to work with you, that's gold.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. It's so important to have that. And it also, have you read the book Oversubscribed with Daniel Priestley? Yeah. So he talks about obviously that side of it, and positioning yourself as the expert, and then it enables you to charge more, and you have clients waiting up for you, and that's how some of the best restaurants stay full effectively and have these long ones.
Sure.
So is the Meaningful Money then going to be almost the lead generator for the wealth management company, and you're going to start passing on the lead, shall we say?
Yeah, and I do. There's an element of that starting already. So I took on a full-time advisor to help me in August last year. So he and I have now, there's more capacity with 2 of us, obviously, rather than me. We're taking on Power Planner, so there's some report writing capacity built in as well. So it will become the primary source of new business. I think it's probably about 40 to 45% of new client inquiries, but bear in mind, we've been in Penzance for a long time. We get somewhere between 10 and 15 good inquiries outside of Meaningful Money per month, right? So, we got more business than we can cope with, really. So we're getting increasingly picky. The very definition of niche. We're not really here to help people with 20 grand to put away. I know I hate that. Part of me really militates against that. But the burden of regulation is such now that we can't profitably do it. Yeah. We know it costs us £1,000 to take a client.
Really?
On. So, there's got to be enough benefit to the client to pay us £1,000 plus a bit for profit just to become a client, right? So, I mean, we're constantly learning, man. As regulation changes and PI rules change and all this sort of stuff, you got to roll with it. And it's already a very different beast to 10 years ago, 15 years ago when I took it on. So, it's a great challenge though. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
Definitely.
I love it. So I guess I'll just do more Meaningful Money over time. That's the idea.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as as I say, I love the roller coaster of the business side, going self-employed in 06, hit by the credit crunch, doing insurance for 7 years, growing a successful team, making mistakes for 10 years, and then getting back to mortgages with a niche in 2016. It's been one hell of a ride, shall we say, but it's for sure. But it's all part of the good fun. But I think something I picked up on your podcast and sort of picking up on there then, a lot has changed in the last 10 years for the mortgage industry specifically. And obviously with yours, with the removal of, being able to charge fees, the removal of receiving money from there. And one of the things I picked up on your podcast this morning is the difference between financial planning and financial advice. And I think personally, my view on this within the mortgage industry is, we used to be able to give mortgage advice pre-credit crunch and pre-changes so easily. Whereas now in the mortgage industry, there is a need for preparation. There is a need for planning. There's a need to get your bank statements in good order, get your credit report sorted, And a mortgage advisor can not fill the role of a financial planner, but has the knowledge to be able to help clients with those basic fundamentals.
For sure, yeah.
But equally, I'm an advocate of advisors charging for their worth. So yes. I think I would like to get your view in terms of how would you see mortgage planning versus someone who's ready to buy mortgage advice, and what do you think the correlation would be from a mortgage advisor's view based on your financial planning experience?
Yeah, we live in the internet age, so sourcing products, for most people, they can do that themselves, right? Now, you know as well as I do, I mean, I've got deep respect for the mortgage advice industry because I know it's a real niche and it's a real expertise, right? It's a real specialism. So I would always say, deal with a good mortgage advisor because they will be able to place your mortgage much better than you will yourself, much better than you'll get from a comparison website, right? Because you don't know the lending criteria, you don't know the underwriters, you haven't got a good relationship with the underwriting team and can talk to them about specific cases. So I always say, look, go see a mortgage advisor, simply because even though if it's dead straightforward, it's like if somebody comes to me and says, I want to put 20 grand in an ISA. So for God's sake, you don't need to pay an advisor for that. Just go on Argus Lansdowne or Vanguard or whatever, just do it, right? And I will provide you all the tools on the podcast to do that. But, if you've got something a little bit more complex or, specialized needs like self-employed, only 1 year's worth of accounts, all that sort of stuff, I might need somebody to almost coach me. Sorry, Siri just woke up there.
Technology.
I know. So I might need somebody to coach me through what I need to do. So we need to understand how valuable that is, right? And we tend to underestimate our own value. So from a financial planning point of view, if I was just interested in a client's money and just interested in selling them more investments or churning them every 5 years, like far too many financial advisors are, just to make a buck on it. I see it still all the time. Well, I mean, I won't be able to sleep at night, but I'd probably be richer than I am, right? Probably. Yeah. But when I go to a client's funeral and have his son, so the deceased guy's son say to me, thank you for looking after my mum. She said, you have made the financial aspect of this very sudden bereavement just completely effortless, and we'll be grateful to you forever. And I'm like, my work is done, right? So that's a specialist thing. I've walked through the situation with the client. It's been a coaching arrangement. So in a mortgage point of view, you're right. We're post MMR now. So you need to have all those things you said, bank statements in order, good credit score, all that sort of stuff. And most people don't know where to start. So you can, on a podcast or videos or whatever, provide good information so they can begin to get their house in order. But guess what? People are busy. So I get people come to me and say, Pete, I know I've been listening to you for 2 years. I know exactly what I have to do, but I'm just too busy. Will you do it for me? And they are prepared to pay for that service. And so, I think the future is extremely bright for professionals who are prepared to walk with a client through a given situation. And, as you sort of carve a niche and you become an expert, you'll end up dealing in your world, Gary, with people who need multiple mortgages lapping, and it really becomes a planning thing. You become their mortgage manager almost, and you're the first person they talk to. So I think the future is very bright for sort of
I lost you there. I got there.
Yeah, am I
back? Is that you or me? Yeah.
Am I
so
back?
I got the future's bright. Yeah. That was really good.
The future's very bright. 4 people. What a great place to start. If anybody wants more on this, it's an old book and it's quite a hefty thing, and it's called The Support Economy. Yeah. Right, and it's I'm sure that's what it's called, The Support Economy, by Zuboff and Max Min, 2 people. I don't think I've got it here because I think I gave my copy away and it's out of print, which was a really bad idea. So I'm sure it's The Support Economy or something like that. But it's Max Min and Zuboff, and it describes, and this is written in something like 1999, but it describes a deep support relationship between customers who are busy and professionals who are interested in more than just a quick sale. They're interested in a deep support relationship. And I just think in a world of disintermediation where you can buy anything instantly, the second half of the book describes, it's almost like a parable, a sort of a story of a couple or a family supported by a series of deep support advisors. And I just think in a world where you can buy anything online very quickly, deep support planning is going to be increasingly valuable. So that's a niche in itself, I think. And for people who are busy, got a million other things to do, there's going to be value in that, and people will always make money off it, I think.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I'm a big advocate of. I think the planning versus advice, I think they're two different things. I get so many people who are business owners wanting to speak to me, when their accounts are coming to an end in April 2020, how do I get myself in the best possible position? You even got an employed person who wants to buy a bigger house. And I'm almost an advocate of saying, well, look, either go and get the job that pays you the money, stop limiting, stop being a limiting belief to yourself, and change your circumstances and earn the money and set yourself up and save the right deposit and just actually have that plan of action, because you're more likely to achieve your goal if you plan for it.
Exactly. To my mind, advice is about broking products, and that's less and less valuable in the internet age because we can do it ourselves. Planning is about relationship, coaching, seeing a path through a given situation and finding the optimal path, and sharing that with the client, and then walking alongside them down that path. Really, that's what planning is. That's what we do here. Long-term relationships with clients. Sometimes we'll go a year and nothing happens, and then they'll ring and say, I found the dream house, the house I've always wanted to buy is on the market. Can I buy it or not? That's an interesting conversation, right? So really, because it's a planning thing. It's a lot of fun. It's much more rewarding than flogging products.
Definitely. And in that planning aspect of things, one of the things I'm also a big advocate, which I think is overlooked, is when first speaking to a client in that planning phase where they're just having that initial conversation, I'm not sure all advisors address the protection shortfall and actually say to somebody, look, you might lose your job, you might do this. Let's have a look at actually, yes, you want to get a mortgage in 12 months, but what could affect you in the next 12 months, which is going to be protection related. And equally, they're helping that planning aspect. What's kind of your views around that from a planning perspective?
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. When I was a mortgage advisor for a couple of years, I had a reputation for having the highest sort of conversion for protection products around the mortgage.
Nice.
So I was working for Rawlinson Alliance. I was in an estate agent in South Wales, had a couple of branches, and it was classic behavioral psychology, really. I would just frame it and I'd say, look, okay, when they first came in for some initial thoughts, I'm like, okay, yeah, you can probably borrow X. It's probably going to cost you X £100 a month, but you need to budget another £100 a month on top of that. And they're like, why? I said, because I'm not doing this mortgage for you unless you protect it, because I will not saddle you up with this debt. And then, if you can't work, you can't pay it, you get kicked out of your house and not having it. And it just, right from the start, reinforcing the importance of protection. Now, that is a little bit different then because it was at the point of sale, whereas you'll rightly say we need to be thinking about that stuff perhaps earlier now. But I call sort of protection, well, in the book that I wrote, which I have a copy of.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. There you go.
All right, okay.
For money book.
But in the book, essentially, they had meaning for money handbook.
Yeah. And I think
so. There's.
I was listening to your podcast episodes. I've listened to your podcast episodes on that where you talk about that. I think every advisor should go and buy a copy because there's so much planning information in there that will actually help them have conversations with their clients.
The reason I mention it is that essentially I distill financial success to three things. Firstly is spend less than you earn. So that's budgeting, good financial management, all the stuff that's particularly going to help you get a mortgage, right? If your bank balance, your bank statements look healthy, not filled up with gym memberships you're not using, not just occasional dips into overdraft, just good financial management. That's step one, spend less than you earn. Easy to say, sometimes not so easy to do, right? And secondly is protect against disaster. So it's important enough to have its own step, because there is no point building wealth into the future on a foundation that can be washed away just because something catastrophic happens. So protect against disaster. And then the third step is to invest wisely. So, and obviously the book expands on that. But protecting against disaster is the foundation on which everything else is built. So it's ignore it at your peril.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Love it. And I'm conscious of your time, so let's just finalize or finish up.
Right.
Are we all right?
Right, for 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah, 5 or 10 minutes, we're fine. Yeah, I got 10 o'clock. I'm interviewing somebody at 10 o'clock.
Nice.
That's why I got to.
Nice. So, thinking about from a mortgage advisor's perspective or small business owner's perspective, if you were going to look at 3 things that an advisor should implement today, whether it be in their marketing strategy, within their planning, within their business, what would you say from your experience would be the 3 things that somebody should start doing as a mortgage advisor from today if they're not already doing it?
Okay, so one that we've commented on already is to start writing down all the questions you get asked. Right, just start to notice them. All right, there's a bit of an active noticing, an active listening. What are the questions that I'm being asked? How am I answering them? Do I find myself repeating the same answers all the time? I mean, literally this week's podcast you're alluding to was how to become a financial advisor. I get asked that once a week, right? Because I've evangelized so much for financial planning as a profession that people say, how do I become one? And I'm like, I keep writing the same email, you know? So now I'm just like, here you go. Here is 3,500 words on the subject. And the podcast and the video if you want to prefer it that way. So the first thing is, start writing down questions and noticing how you answer them and things like that. My hero, Gary Vaynerchuk, the guy that sort of was the trigger, wrote Crush It, the trigger for doing this, he talks about documenting your journey. So we all develop as professionals. I mean, I look back to my first ever outbound sales call, and this is to an existing customer of the CIS. It was in 1998, right? I'm 23 years old, and I pick up the phone because we used to get given a list of book like this, and it was about 1.5 inches thick, and I had 3 of them. And we used to these are existing customers of the CIS in my area, and we had to ring them up and get appointments for our sales managers.
Nice.
The heady days of direct sales, right? And I remember I made my first call, which was not successful. And I came off the phone and my wife in the other room, my wife of about 6 months, she said, "You sound too young." That's like, sound too young. It's like, yeah, absolutely right. So, you know, I think where I was then and where I am now, 21 years of development, client contact, you know, I'm training advisors here and I have a job to shut up because I know how I would answer the question, but they need to learn how to do it themselves. So if you document that journey, the stuff you're learning, you know, the stuff you've said to a client, which has made a massive difference in their perception, that's the stuff you need to be aware of and document it. You know, a 250-word blog post. Today I had a conversation with a client and they asked this question. I've been asked this question 100 times before, but today I answered it in a way which made a massive difference. Let me tell you about it. And it could be a 1-minute Insta video. It could be 15, 20-minute podcast, whatever, or just a blog post. But documenting, even if nobody reads for 2 years, right? It's building up a body of work. So start to listen to the questions that you get asked all the time and write down. Document your own journey as a professional, the stuff you're learning every day, because like, you know, it is interesting. It might just be your mother and, you know, one other random person who reads at start, but it is interesting. We identify with people. What would the third thing I would do? I would definitely consume people who you admire online and learn what they do. I've got a fourth, actually. It's just popped into my mind. But I started podcasting because I was a consumer first. So I listened to people like Michael Hyatt, who's a productivity and leadership podcaster and blogger. I listened to Pat Flynn, who's smartpassiveincome.com, who's an online business genius. I listened to Cliff Ravenscraft, who's a podcasting. He's like the godfather of podcasting, been doing it since 2003. And so, you know, I started listening to these people, learning what they were doing, buying their courses maybe, because I think I want to get better at this. And so you need to invest in yourself. So do it. I suppose that's how to distill that. Invest in yourself by spending time watching other people who are ahead of you, right? And, you know, maybe buy courses or whatever, but it will accelerate your success. And then the fourth thing that just occurred to me is to read this book. You come across this guy, Ryan Holiday, I think is one of the best authors of our generation. I absolutely adore him. This book, he's written all kinds of excellent books. There's another one here, which I can't just spot. The Obstacle is the Way. So in other words, he's sort of, you know, persevering. As you persevere and as you overcome obstacles, really that's where the magic happens. But Ego is the Enemy. I've resolved to read this book once a year for the rest of my life.
Nice.
Because we live in a media-rich world, it's easy to, as the Americans say, drink your own Kool-Aid and start to believe how good you are. This is a very, and that's when danger
Grounding,
happens, I think. Yeah. So this book is it's the sort of antidote to that. It doesn't crush you, you know. It doesn't say actually you're a bit shit, don't you know? But actually, it gives you a really good perspective, and I love this book. My favorite book of the last 10 years, easy.
Nice.
So highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with content creation or anything like that. Just an outstanding book.
And we'll put the link to we'll find Support Economy online, and we'll find Michael Hyatt's podcast and Pat Flynn's and Ego is the Enemy. We'll put links to those in the show notes for this, so obviously you can find them nice and easy. But one of the reasons why you mentioned there perseverance, I set up and I kind of branded this as Mortgage Pro, because to me, Pro, I'm massively key on values and what things mean. So Pro to me is all about perseverance, results, and opportunity. So what would becoming a mortgage pro or becoming pro mean to you?
Turning pro.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's I think there's a book called that, or a podcast. I can't remember. It might be. I've just something sort of buzzing in my memory that I've read something about that. So yeah, turning pro. If you think, well, the antithesis of that is being a bit of an amateur, right? Amateurs don't stick at it. They get discouraged very early, right? Turning pro doesn't mean that you've cracked it from day one. It just means that you are determined to. So it's as much a state of mind and a view on life than it is about an attainment thing. So it's like, actually, I'm going to treat this thing like it is the most important thing in my life, and results will follow as a result of that. I think it means pursuing excellence. Practically for me, it is quite possible, for example, to shoot a video on your phone or on a originally crappy little flip cam like that. But I went from that. Siri flipping keeps waking up. So I went from that to this level of kit, right? Which is, you know, not inconsiderable. I mean, there's thousands of pounds worth of equipment there. But I went to that because I wanted the sound, the audio to be the best it could be. I wanted the video to be the best it could be. So very often I'm shooting in 4K, ultra high definition, condensing down, rendering down to 1080. And I don't have to, right? Fire alarm test. I don't have to, because it's the content that is the most important thing. It's what you say that is the most important thing. But a pro will pursue excellence in the delivery of it. So when it comes to audio, video quality, the way you speak, your presence on camera, your comfort with yourself and lack of awkwardness about it. Even just a little thing on video, in particular, I see this all the time, is instead of me looking at me or at you, looking right at the camera.
Yeah.
You know, these are little things which can elevate you, and people are almost not aware of them. And I think if you're going to do video, particularly, whether it's Instagram or on YouTube, I think the way is so much of it around now. The way to really stand out is to be either very different or very, very good. Right? So your Casey Neistats, your Peter McKinnons, these superstars on YouTube, they're just brilliant at what they do. Really, really good. And they've done it consistently. So being pro is consistency, pursuing excellence, investing in yourself. And it's more a state of mind than a level of attainment, I think. That answer the question? Love that.
What a perfect way to end the podcast, I think, without a shadow of a doubt. So thank you very much indeed, Pete. I'm eternally grateful for you coming on and obviously having a conversation today. Where can, obviously, as I say, I want everybody to go and buy a copy of Meaningful Money, listen to the podcast, because I'm learning stuff in terms of being able to help my clients plan around their being a business owner and wanting to buy houses and looking at their investment side of things. But where would you like people to get in contact with you?
Cool. Well, I mean, firstly, you kindly added me to the Mortgage Pro group so that we could do this. So just, tag me in a comment on there, ask me a question on there. More than happy to answer. The easiest way by far is, I'm sure you can see that, and then that might be reversed, but that's Meaningful Money, and the domain is .tv. So meaningfulmoney.tv. The website is about to be relaunched in about 4 or 5 weeks, and I can't wait because the current one is a bit clunky. So that's been a long time coming. So yeah, meaningfulmoney.tv. The book, if you want a simple link to the book, is petesbook.com.
And we'll put all that in the show notes as well so people can grab it nice and easily. But thank you very much indeed. I'm conscious of your time, so I'll let you crack on to your next appointment.
Don't worry. Cheers, Gary. You're doing great work, mate. Keep going. That's the key to everything. Really, is consistency. Everything else comes as you are consistent. But that really is absolutely everything. So keep going, mate. Doing great work, and thank you for having me.
Thanks, mate. Appreciated, and likewise to you.